Okay, let's dive into this. Imagine you're an ancient prophet, and you're given one of the strangest assignments you could possibly imagine. You're not just called to speak a message, you're told to perform it right there in public, using your own dinner as the stage for a terrifying prophecy.
So this command comes from the book of Ezekiel. And it's not just some bizarre instruction, right? It's what's known as an acted sign. God is telling the prophet Ezekiel to physically become the message, to literally act out the anxiety and the terror that was about to just swallow an entire nation. His meal becomes this living, breathing warning.
Now, to really feel the impact of this, you gotta understand the context. We're talking around 592 BC. Ezekiel is in exile in Babylon, hundreds of miles away from his home, Jerusalem. So he performs this really disturbing public act for his fellow exiles, prophesying a disaster that hasn't even happened yet. Back home, Jerusalem is still standing, but yeah, not for long.
So what was this whole performance about? What was the message that was baked into this strange, fearful meal for everyone who was watching him?
Well, it was a really powerful three-part message. First, the food itself, just bread and water. That symbolized bare survival. Then, the action, eating with visible trembling and fear, was a performance of pure, raw anxiety. And the whole purpose of it was to be a chilling preview, a way to show the exiles what life was about to be like for their friends and family back in Jerusalem.
So why was this terrifying future on its way? The prophecy is crystal clear that this wasn't some random disaster. Nope, it was a direct consequence of what was happening inside the city's own walls.
You see, Ezekiel's trembling meal was a preview of siege conditions. This is when an army surrounds a city, cutting off all supplies. Food and water become incredibly precious, and daily life just shrinks down to nothing but survival, all while being haunted by this constant, gnawing fear.
This slide just lays it all out, a straight line from cause to effect. On the left, you see the internal corruption that was tearing Judah apart: violence, injustice, oppression. And on the right, the prophecy's outcome: a desolate land, wasted cities, and a daily life filled with fear. The message is unmistakable. The destruction wasn't just from an outside army. It was the direct result of their own actions.
And the whole stated purpose of this terrible event was this one phrase which you see over and over again in Ezekiel: "And ye shall know that I am the Lord." The idea was that the fulfillment of this prophecy would be so undeniable that it would force them to recognize the divine authority they'd been ignoring for so long. But here's the thing. As Ezekiel delivered these urgent warnings, he just slammed into a wall of cynical denial. The people had actually developed their own catchy phrases, their own proverbs, to dismiss any truth that made them feel uncomfortable.
This was their favorite proverb. It's such a human sentiment, isn't it? Ah, we've heard all this before. The prophets keep warning us, but time just keeps passing and nothing ever happens. They were literally using the simple passage of time as proof that all these dire warnings were just empty threats.
And of course, they had a backup excuse. Okay, fine, maybe it's real, but it's for some distant future generation. It's not our problem. This is just a timeless strategy for avoiding accountability, right? It's kind of a normalcy bias, where we just assume things will keep going as they are and push any real consequences into a future we don't have to deal with.
And here, the confrontation is just laid bare. Look at the direct rebuttal for each and every excuse. The people's cynical delay is met with divine immediacy. God's message basically dismantles their entire argument, declaring that the consequences aren't for some far-off future. They are for right now in their days.
So this confrontation brings us to the climax of the passage, where God declares that the time for clever proverbs, cynical dismissals, and just plain procrastination is officially over.
There's so much finality here. God isn't just arguing against their proverb. He says he will make it cease. He's actively ending the mockery by turning the warning into reality. The entire dynamic just shifts from a distant threat to an imminent, unavoidable event.
And that phrase, "at hand," it wasn't just rhetoric. From the time Ezekiel performs this sign, it would be only about 4 years before Nebuchadnezzar's army showed up at the gates of Jerusalem to begin the final devastating siege. 4 years is not a distant future. It was well within their lifetime, just like God promised.
This is the final word on the matter. That comfortable buffer of time, the one the people had used like a shield against accountability, has just been vaporized. The period of grace, of patient warning, is officially closing.
So,
With the time for warnings over, the story moves from a divine declaration to the historical record, where this prophecy becomes a brutal, documented reality.
And the timeline here just closes the loop perfectly. It starts in 592 BC with Ezekiel's fearful meal. Just 4 years later, the siege begins. And after 2.5 years of starvation and terror, the very siege conditions Ezekiel acted out, Jerusalem and its temple are utterly destroyed. The prophecy was fulfilled exactly as it was spoken.
You know, this whole account is from over 2,600 years ago, but it's more than just ancient history. It's a really powerful look at our human tendency to delay and deny uncomfortable truths, and it leaves us with a pretty sharp question to think about. What are the modern proverbs of delay that we use in our own lives to put off what we know we need to face?